conscientization among public servants, more vigilance among citizens and civil society organizations, more zero tolerance from the private sector. Bribery is a very big issue between the private sector and the government. And from the latest PSA survey, it's about 20% occurring. No? So mahirap mahirap ma-extract yung accountability kapag yung i-extractan mo ay hindi committed and na ganun ang gawin niya. Pangalawa, kung walang nagbabantay, although yun nga, yung civil society natin ngayon, di ba, parang towards normalization, no? Pero yun nga, maraming civil society pa rin ang naghahanap talaga ng opportunity and the right environment to really engage, no? Hindi kagaya ng mga unang panahon na yung post-EDSA, na yung civil society talaga ay recognized, no? Pero ngayon parang underground pa rin ulit sila at hindi pa nila alam kung paano gumalaw. So mahirap ma-extract ang accountability. So it takes the whole of society approach. At hindi lang isa ang kailangan gumalaw, lahat tayo dapat gumalaw. With regard to the BBM, Sarah, kagaya nga ng sabi ni Professor Ella, talagang maganda yung alliance na yon kasi you have the at saka yung sabi kanina ni JC na yun nga, it's the alliance between the strong north and the strong south. But there have been cracks in the alliance at yun nga ang naging fatality ay si GMA at nawala siya bilang senior deputy speaker ng House of Representatives. So ang doon, anong mangyayari? Ano yung ang tanong ni Ma'am Judy, ano yung pangitain, no? Mahirap kasing ng bolang kristal. Mahirap po 'yun, no? Pero yun nga po ang doon, anong pangitain noon? Ang pangitain nito, the president and the vice president are parang creating their own image. And presidency and vice presidency. At unti-unti na silang naglalaglag, nagagawa ng kanilang legacy, no? And in the parang creation of the legacy, there will be conflicts between Marcos and Duterte. Kasi di ba nga pinagalitan si Sara, bakit ka pumayag na vice president? Kasi pwede ka namang maging president material. No? So parang doon, it will depend on the kasi wala naman tayong re-election ng president, di ba? So ang mo doon, sinong isusunod na magiging presidente? And kung ang ambisyon ni Sara is to be the next president, yung mga direksyon natin na nakikita, kasi si Romualdez is also jockeying toward that position. Si Subiri sabi niya ayoko, di ba? Pero yun nga, may mga pangitain na magkakaroon sila ng banggaan. And there may be parang falling apart in the next years if the conflict at yung aspirations ni Bongbong at saka ni Sara will be widely different. So yun po yung
Okay. Thank you to our panelists, Dr. Tana.
May dadagdag lang sana ako dun sa PhilHealth kasi I may be wrong, pero maybe we are seeing a pattern of government financial institutions and GOCCs being co-opted politically. And we saw this already in the Maharlika Investment Fund, kung saan, for example, even if there is a prohibition in the bill when it comes to GSIS and SSS pension funds being invested in Maharlika, the president is saying another thing, that there's actually a possibility, and even the finance secretary is broaching the possibility of these institutions investing still in Maharlika. And then of course, in the bill itself, nakalagay doon na yung Land Bank of the Philippines and the Development Bank of the Philippines, Land Bank by the way kung saan pumapasok ang mga sweldo natin, ay these will be essentially these are behest contributions to Maharlika, in the words of Professor Emmanuel De Chos, kung saan this is reminiscent of what had happened during martial law, kung saan the Marcos dictatorship is also instructed government financial institutions to finance, for example, yung mga loans to cronies of the dictatorship na parang ngayon nakalagay dun sa 3-page business proposal ng Maharlika. For example, Maharlika can invest in companies that are engaged in real estate, companies listed in the Philippine Stock Exchange. And then if you think kung sino yung proponent ng Maharlika sa Senate, parang you can make the connection doon, di ba? So, ayun, we have to, as Professor Achenges said, kailangan bantayan itong PhilHealth na parang additional development na, yun, is there a pattern ng GOCCs and GFIs being co-opted? We have to watch this space.
So in terms of foreign policy, so the website of the Office of the Vice President boasted that during the first 100 days, Sarah actually helped strengthen diplomatic relations with other countries. But this only include like hosting courtesy calls. Meron pa sinabi na gift giving to daycare children in partnership with the Embassy of the State of Qatar, and visited the residents of the Japanese. So like, pero from the title of the pinapalabas na she is really parang crucial in the strengthening of the diplomatic relations. Now, when Marcos visited Washington, D.C., so he parang gave a talk sa CSIS, he actually said that, or he acknowledged that there had been abuses by certain elements of the government during his predecessor's war on drugs. So doon makita na natin na parang may lamat na nga, right? And we have to remember that magkaiba sila ng posisyon ng mga Duterte, tsaka si Marcos on China and the South China Sea. So Marcos is trying to be more proactive, strengthening traditional and non-traditional partnerships. But Duterte, I mean, yung group niya, yung camp niya, are the ones who are warning Marcos and the government that we are actually being played in this great power conflict. Na sila yung nag-warn sa atin na we could actually be dragged into war by fostering closer relations with the US, Australia, and Japan. So may disjoint, okay, between the Marcos and the Duterte camps. Now, Sarah, I don't know really kung ano yung position niya about this, but when she becomes president, if she plans on running, that is, some observers are actually worried that we might focus again on internal conflicts. Okay, yung counterinsurgency, concern about the communists, yung NPA, ganyan, terrorist groups, ganyan. So, parang maging inward-looking ulit tayo instead of outward-looking na parang more concerned na dapat on external issues. So, that's my take po.
All right. Thank you very much to our panelists and to the questions. Okay, so we have 3 hands raised. So maybe we can collect these 3 questions. Ikaw muna, sir, and then the one in white, and then...
Since tomorrow, July scheduled, according to news, na parang isa-sign daw yung Maharlika Investment Fund. So is tomorrow, July 18, sabi, scheduled daw for signing. For us, parang citizenry, parang you're considering na yun nga, ang daming, as mentioned by Prof. JC po ng Bayan, daming problems dun sa bill na yon in terms of na-mention ni previous Chief Justice Antonio Carpio regarding dun sa computation ng deficit and yung ROI niya. So magiging ballooning deficit din yon. Is there parang pwedeng i-challenge yon ng judiciary in terms of constitutionality nung since hindi naman siya emergency di ba? Tapos yun nga, parang pwede bang ma-veto out yun, pero yun nga, syempre discretion yun. Alam naman natin yung political power play dito, di ba? Na parang rubber stamp yung both lower and parang Senate. So is there a way for parang Filipinos to since yun nga, concerned tayong lahat doon?
Okay, so we have one question on the Maharlika Fund, the one at the back.
Hello, good afternoon po. This question is for Professor Ella Atienza po. So, my question is, will devolution be at risk in the prevalence of patronage politics in the local government? And if so, what exactly could the LGC or the amendments in LGC could do about this?
Okay. Another question on devolution. Please introduce yourself when you ask your question and probably your affiliation.
Hi, I'm Teta Pardaris from the Senate Economic Planning Office. My questions are for Dr. Punong Bayan. Are there any, kasi na-sense ko kanina yung mga frustrations mo, but are there any good news or positive developments that you saw on the economic front under the BBM administration? And also you mentioned earlier about the need for actions or measures that would address looming crisis. What legislative measures do you think the Senate or the House or the legislature should prioritize more specifically to avert a potential fiscal crisis? Thank you.
Okay, so we have two questions on the economy and then one question on devolution. Will devolution be at risk with the prevalence of political dynasties? Tama? Okay. So maybe Dr. Punang Bayan, since there are two related questions on the Maharlika and also possible legislative measures to address fiscal crisis, maybe you can answer those questions first.
Okay, so when it comes to the Maharlika Investment Fund, certainly maraming mga issues na pwedeng ibato doon and can be raised doon sa cases that will be raised before the Supreme Court. However, as I believe, parang I'm not a lawyer or a political science expert, pero when it comes to policies, medyo hands-off ang Supreme Court when it comes to that. And parang merong discretion yung Congress when it comes to making such policies, especially policies that are ostensibly related to economic growth, development, etc. So parang it's a matter of discretion. However, I think, may legal problems and then merong, actually, ang main problem nga is, ano ba yung silbi nitong Maharlika Investment Fund that even the proponents aren't even sure about that. Na parang iba-iba yung kasi even for example, I think it was Senator Villar who mentioned that it will also create 350,000 jobs. Ano ba to? Job generation measure ba to? Something to speed up infrastructure investments? Is it a sovereign wealth fund? Meron siyang identity crisis that until now, one day before it's going to be signed by the president ay hindi siya nare-resolve. So pero yeah, yung Supreme Court challenge will be quite interesting to watch and engage in. When it comes to good things that happen to the economy, well, I at least one policy that I agree with this economic team would be the push for reform dun sa military and uniform pension, personnel pension system, kasi it really poses a huge risk on our finances in the coming decades. Kasi for the longest time, they have been kicking the can down the road kung saan pinapasa yung task of reforming that thing. Pero for example, yung unfunded pension payments based on Department of Finance estimates is about half of GDP. So about 10 trillion pesos yung utang pa sa mga pensioners, sa mga retired military and uniform personnel. So kung yung pera ng gobyerno ay mapupunta doon imbis na sa edukasyon, sa kalusugan, sa ayuda, etc., then certainly makakompromise yung ganong klaseng social services ng gobyerno. So merong limit dun sa extent that you can kick the can down the road. At one point, they will have to raise new taxes. Pero for the government, Marcos government, to have any credibility in asking for new taxes, they have to pay their own taxes as well. Sabi ni Justice Carpio is about 203 billion pesos of unpaid estate taxes by the Marcoses. So they can set a good example by paying that thing before they can have any credibility in asking for new taxes. Thank you.
Regarding the question on devolution and patronage politics, definitely in 31 years of the local government code, one of the problems is that we have patronage politics and the poorest provinces and other LGUs keep electing persons from political family. So it's a very difficult situation, and definitely no matter how idealistic a particular uh, law is, it can be used by anybody, it can be exploited by anybody, like the party list system. Sino na yung mga nakaupo sa party list system? Dapat mga progressive sectors yon, di ba? So ganun din sa devolution kung walang countervailing forces. Kaya importante talaga dito na you strengthen people's first information before they can advocate, they can demand accountability. Kailangan alam nila ano ba yung mga powers, functions, paano, magkano yung nakolektang taxes, 'di ba? Saan napunta yung nakolekt na taxes. Amendments sa local government code, importante na nakalagay doon syempre yung may maganda actually yung proposal dati, yung interagency task force nung second half nung term ni President Duterte na sa sharing, yung dati IRA yung tawag, ngayon NTA na, National Tax Allocation, dahil nagkaroon ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Hindi lang ang titingnan yung size of the LGU, the population size, kasama din yung income, priority yung mas poorer LGUs, pero merong performance parang kailangan ding ma-meet yung criteria na ginagamit yung pera for the responsibilities allocated by the LGU. Kaya lang naabutan ng COVID, hindi na na-consider yung mga proposals na yon, pero actually at sa Committee on Local Governments na ipasok yung proposal na yon, kaya lang hindi na na-discuss. Perhaps somebody can revive that at both houses of Congress. But we also need changes. As I said, baka nga mahirap na laging national yung focus natin when it comes to the anti-dynasty provision. We can focus on the lower levels, starting at the lower levels, and then we need to have changes also in our party system and the electoral system. Professor Tigno wrote several discussion papers and policy briefs on electoral and party system reforms. Maybe you can also look at it. But we all definitely we need to use the openings in the local government code for people's participation, and we need to actually there's lobby to have a Genuine People's Assembly Act. Hindi lang siya para bigyan ng ayuda yung mga tao, pero talagang People's Assembly na talagang nagsasalita yung mga tao, and they can check on the powers of the local governments, and they can also say what issues they want to have action. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you to our panelists. So in the interest of time, we can only accommodate one last round of questions. So we have one here, and then another one, and then, okay, so 3 people. First, sir, please introduce yourself and affiliation.
Good afternoon po. Johnson from ABS-CBN. Just out of curiosity, if you're not in your current positions as experts, doctors of philosophy, doctor of economics, will you still be willing to watch or at least listen to the SONA of the president, and why?
Okay, so interest in the SONA. Okay, maybe we can collect first.
The reason why I asked that question is on the point of view of an ordinary people.
Okay.
Why will I spend my time watching the president, stating the nation, state of the nation, kung alam naman po natin what is the reality sa Pilipinas?
So that's one, and then Dr. Go. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm John Robert Go from the Department of Political Science and the Philippine Political Science Association. My question is about China. The question is, BBM, the first country visited outside Southeast Asia is China. Okay, and in fact, when China reopened its doors, one of the first leaders who visited the country is also BBM. So in terms of the relationship, there's an attempt to, to show that that relationship is good. But then you said that the policy earlier was, well, I'm directing this to Dr. Tana. Okay. So you said earlier that the policy was to be friend to all, and then you think it is impossible. Okay. But during that visit, a lot of agreements were signed, between the Philippines and China. And economically speaking, this would have impact in our country. I don't know if that is correct. Maybe Dr. Punang Bayan can correct that impression if the agreements between China and the Philippines economic implications. Okay. In any case, what do you think is BBM willing to do? I mean, is he willing to risk one over the other? Because will he be willing to risk economic benefits to the Philippines in exchange of a stronger position in the South China Sea and alliance with the US? Okay, and probably what would be the stakes? I don't want you to become a fortune teller here, but yeah, maybe you can give us some insights on this. Thank you.
Okay, and then third question before our panelists respond from Professor Tigno.
Thank you. I don't know if this is a fair question to ask, no? Not exactly of the panel, no, but of the new administration. But based on what you talked about so far, I am missing an architecture, a master plan. Okay. Now I don't know, is that a fair question to ask of this president? Or have previous presidents also missed out on having a master plan? Anyone can answer.
Okay, so maybe the order of answering can be the directed question first on China, and then the master plan question, and then probably we can also serve as a closing remarks yung question ni Joseph from ABS-CBN na how would you encourage ordinary Filipinos to listen to the SONA? Okay.
Thank you, Elize. Thank you, Rob, for the question. If I remember correctly, it was Indonesia that Marcos first visited. So the foreign policy priority is still Southeast Asia, but he did visit, I think twice. And the question is, like, what concessions are we willing to give China? That's one, and what to make of these agreements that were signed during his visit. So the concessions. I think Marcos is still trying to feel his way, I guess, where to put his foot in. So parang kaya nga yun yung strategy niya. So it's a two-hand strategy. So on the one hand, he's trying to get security guarantees from the US. On the other hand, he's still trying to maintain good relations with China because of economic reasons. But I think this administration, through the Department of Defense, emphasize that there, as I've mentioned earlier, there are some lines that we cannot cross. So we cannot compromise in terms of our territorial integrity. Okay, so I guess when it comes to that, when dun na talaga, I guess we have to choose which side to align ourselves with. Pero yun nga, again, remember that we have the MDT. Okay, so Marcos is trying to be smart about his strategy. So parang he's hedging, right? So yeah, there are some statements saying that the relations will not change, that they will remain the same, that we are still friends. But I don't know if these are just to appease China in the end. Now, regarding the agreements, unless that these pledges would be translated into actual projects, then they are just that, pledges. Okay, so it's still parang tingnan natin kung anong mangyayari to these pledges. Kasi sometimes these pledges are just parang courtesy, yung sinasabi, ng everything, parang every time someone visits, so sasabihin nila, we promise to give this and that. Okay, so we'll see what will become of these pledges. Kasi gano'n yung nangyari kay Duterte, right? And it's also up to the government, to the Philippine government, to pursue these pledges. Ako kayo, so dapat we have to run after them. Okay, so I suppose how we can describe Philippine-China relations now is cold politics, hot economics. Diba? So ganon, no? What else? Yun nga, in the event of a Taiwan contingency, if you're curious, we are not still decided on what role we will play and how what role these EDCA sites will play in that event. But Marcos has emphasized that these EDCA sites will not be used for offensive purposes, and that's what our priority is our OFWs in Taiwan. But then again, MDT. So there. So I hope I answered the question, Rob. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tana. Maybe Dean Fe can answer the question on the master plan. Oh,
Does BBM have a master plan? We have a Philippine Development Plan, which is usually a rehash of old plans. No, but the 2023-2028 has a different section on competitiveness and national security. It different from the previous blueprints on these two aspects. Maybe because as president, you cannot put your master plan in one document. The Philippine Development Plan is supposed to be a collective. And then we have the Ambition 2040. So there are master plans, but does the BBM have a master plan he can call his own? Maybe he's still weaving through, still learning, although he has been preparing for the past 14 years. So maybe because it's different when you are in the position. You have vision of what you should be doing before election, but when you are elected, maybe your priorities have changed, or maybe your vision of what should be in the master plan or in the blueprint of the administration may have changed, and you would need right timing in order to push these plans. So that's maybe he's still groping his way around. First year pa naman, kumbaga sa ano, pagbigyan naman natin kasi first year pa lang naman. But we hope that by the end of the 6th year, klaro na yung master plan, but then he's gone, no? Tapos na siya. So parang yung parang ganun. Pero I would last na ba yung dun sa ano, dun sa how do we encourage?
pwede po. And then we can
Oo.
also hear.
Ang ano kasi, if you're not a PhD or an expert here or a UP student, kasi every time na may SONA, may reflection paper kayong pinapagawa, no? So, why would ordinary citizens listen to the SONA? It's part of our civic parang citizenship. Although yun nga, alam ba natin na civic citizenship natin yun. So, ang ano doon, kahit hindi siya, kasi marami din namang ordinary citizens who listen and watch the SONA. Kasi parang, marami yatang parokyano dito na kung nagbebenta ka, so parang, sige, manood muna tayo ng habang kayo ay kumakain, diba? So parang, double purpose yung pakikinig sa SONA. So, ang ano doon, importante kasi na dapat the real state of the nation is said. Kasi okay lang naman na mababa tayo dito or mahina tayo dito, and then mobilize collectively ang lahat ng mga tao towards one direction. Kasi kung isu-sugarcoat mo yung weaknesses of the present administration and palagi mo sabihin, ay ang galing-galing ko, hindi tayo mag-i-improve. So ang ano doon, both two ways siya. One, maybe yung ordinary citizens and all of us should embrace that civic citizenship to listen to the SONA. Yung second naman, the one delivering the SONA should provide the real state of the nation. Para ang ano mo doon, kasi pag kwentas klaras, mas madaling sumulong kesa kung sasabihin mo yung hindi totoo, and then people will be in an illusory dreamland. So dapat meron ding honesty kung ano ang talagang sitwasyon natin ngayon, para naman kung kailangan talagang umarangkada tayo and parang overcome witnesses, meron tayong pupuntahan, may direction tayo.
Okay, thank you, Dean Fe. Maybe Joseph also has some insights on the two questions, the master plan and more particularly encouraging people to watch the SONA.
Dun sa second question on encouraging, una, nagpapasalamat ako at nasama ako sa mga experts. Kasi within civil society, actually, we organize collective listening sessions. No? Bakit mahalaga yon? Kaya po nang nasabi, una, obligasyon yon ng presidente. Bahagi siya ng democratic system natin na nagre-report ang presidente sa tunay na kalagayan. Yun nga, ang question, tunay ba na kalagayan ang nare-report? So, obligasyon yon. So, kailangan gawin. At bilang mga citizens, dapat tayo nakikinig. Pero, at kaya halimbawa, yung unang SONA ni BBM, parang gaya ng nabanggit po nung simula, no? Parang ang daming, ang taas nung expectation, ano? Yung anticipation. Kasi wala siyang sinabi during the campaign, eh. So, naghihintay lahat ng mga tao, ano ang sasabihin niya, ano ang direksyon ng buhay natin sa susunod na 6 na taon sa ilalim ng kanyang administrasyon. Nakahintay lahat, no? Even yung mga, I think, general public naghihintay, ano? Unfortunately, gaya ng nabanggit ko dun sa presentation ko, yung message na yon na hindi naka-address sa taong bayan, kundi sa economic and political elites at sa business community. So unang SONA pa lang, at ito yung second value ng SONA para sa mga nag-a-analyze, nagpapakita siya kung sino ba yung ano ba ang priorities ng administrasyon, no? At sa konteksto nung binanggit ko rin na fog of normalization, para sa amin mahalaga yung mga SONA bilang pagkakataon na unti-unting makubaran ba o ma-lift itong fog of normalization na to at ma-expose yung problema sa policy at projects ng administrasyon. So I think may mahalagang papel ang civil society sa paghubog ng ating demokrasya. Ngayon, ang karakteristik ng demokrasya natin ay elite democracy. At ito ang problema o agendang naiwan nung EDSA, eh. Maaring yung political agenda ay na-address, no, up to the local government, no? Pero yung economic decision making, hindi siya na-address, eh. 'Di ba? So, nanatiling demokrasya para sa iilan, no? So sa pakikinig sa SONA na nare-realize natin na-affirm, unfortunately, na ang mga gobyernong hinalal natin ay hindi nagsisilbi sa interes ng karamihan. At sana nag-i-inspire siya para mas lumakas yung pagkilos, no? Para tunay nga yung demokrasya natin na ngayon ay elite democracy ay maging mas popular na klase ng demokrasya.
Okay, thank you very much. Last few insights from Dr. Atienza, Dr. Punambayan.
Bakit importante yung SONA kahit sa mga kung hindi ka media, kung hindi ka civil society member, hindi ka academic, hindi ka development worker. I think ang importante kasi doon, yung pakikinig pa lang, it's already part of the beginnings of your exercise of your citizenship. Na makinig ka, pero pwede kang mag-disagree. Diba? So, pwede mong i-validate o sabihin na, ay, disagree ako dyan, hindi naman totoo yung mga sinasabi. At saka, syempre, titingnan mo rin, sige nga, ano ba yung pangako mo? Tapos, pwede mong tingnan, ito yung magiging basihan ko para sabihin na talaga nga bang tinupad mo to. I think, sa dami-dami ng mga generalities na sinabi ng presidente nung nangangampanya siya, yung very specific niya na 20 pesos ang kilo ng rice, pag tinatanong pag tinatanong yung mga tao, natatandaan nila yon kasi napakalapit sa sa sikmura. Di ba yun yung lumalabas sa Pulse Asia, kahit ayaw nating makinig sa surveys pagka sino yung gustong mananalong kandidato, pero yung hindi tayo nagdi-disagree doon sa lumalabas lagi. Ano yung mga concerns, top 5 concerns, lahat related sa economy, sa sweldo, sa kakainin nila, 'di ba? So yun yung yun yung mga parang pinakamadali na aspect na mai-relate natin kung tama o mali ang SONA o nangako ba natutugunan niya yung mga issues na madalas napakalapit sa sikmura. May master plan ba or wala beyond yung lalabas sa mga development plans? Nung una natakot, syempre, marami, baka gayahin. Kasi mukhang ginagaya niya, pati itsura niya at pananamit, ginagaya niya yung tatay niya. Di ba? Pero parang, hindi, iba. May vision, meron talaga malinaw na yung ama may vision. Is that good or bad? Or at least, sabi so at least hindi magkakaroon ng mga nangyaring masama nung panahon ng ama niya. Kaya lang, ang problema rin, kung walang master plan, maraming bumubulong sa likod at iba't iba yung grupo at iba't iba yung agenda nila at hindi natin sila kilala lahat. So, siguro magandang research yan sa mga investigative journalists. Medyo, mas may, lamang kayo kesa sa amin dyan sa mga behind the scenes na mga marites at mga intriga. Pero actually, gusto rin namin pag-aralan yan kasi importante sa amin yan. Ano talaga yung nangyayari behind closed doors, behind the speeches and the formal processes. Mas maganda talagang malaman ano yung nangyayari sa likod. At may mga awayan. Lumalabas naman minsan, nagiging obvious. Pero gusto nating gusto sana natin na mas maipakita, 'di ba? Para makita ano ba talaga ang agenda nyo at sino-sino kayo na may mga kanya-kanya. Ayun. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last but not the least, Dr. Punong Bayan. Pero before that, we have some refreshments available later after the forum. Okay. Go.
Ayun, maraming salamat. Pagdating doon sa master plan, nabanggit yung Philippine Development Plan na supposedly overarching na plano na susundan ng lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno. Pero unang-una, actually delayed nga yung publication ng PDP. Na-publish siya Disyembre na, samantalang sa mga nakalipas sa administrasyon, mas maaga. Kasi parang dapat simula pa lang, ay may plano ka na. Pero ito, parang kinram nga nila nung later part ng 2022. At mas importante doon, parang sa mga nakalipas na administrasyon kasi parang nagiging hanggang papel lang yung Philippine Development Plan na parang merong plano, maganda yung plano, komprehensibo, maraming targets, pero hindi talaga siya na-implement or hindi tayo interesado sa pag-implement or pagbabantay kung na-implement siya. At in some instances, actually parang masisense mo na parang iniimbento nila yung plano along the way. For example, yung sa Maharlika Investment Fund na wala nga siya sa Philippine Development Plan Tapos ngayon sinasabi, ito ang mag-aahon sa Pilipinas, sa ekonomiya natin, job generation, investments, etc. Parang naging silver bullet na siya, parang naging panacea na siya sa lahat ng economic problems natin. So, nandun yung parang arbitrariness. Pagdating doon sa interest ng mga ordinaryong tao, I think alam naman ng mga tao kung ano yung mga issue For example, yung inflation, tulad nung nabanggit ni Prof. Ella na yung sa Pulse Asia na 63% ang sinasabi na yun ang pinaka-pressing issue sa ating bansa. Yung mga economic issues pero pinaka-importanting inflation, alam nila, damang-dama nila yung epekto ng ganong klase mga problema. Pero I think isang challenge ay paano i-connect yung mga bad economic outcomes sa mga polisiya ng mga policy makers at mga leaders na parang on the one hand, alam nating issue, pero ayaw nating idugtong na kasalanan ito ni ganito ganyan kasi hindi sila mapangit ang mga polisiya nila. So I think yung ganong klaseng critical na pagtingin sa mga issue napaka-importante na mapagpatuloy natin sa mga susunod na taon. At panghuli, yung SONA, I think kung meron silang na-master na isang bagay, ayun yung narrative control. Na parang pagdating sa propaganda, pagdating sa mga slogan, ganyan. Kahit na ano yung mga punan natin, bumibenta siya sa maraming tao Na parang maraming mga lesson na maaring mapulot doon. Pero obligasyon din ng ordinaryong tao na sa kabila ng ganong klaseng mga slogans at mga propaganda ay maging mas critical tayo kasi alam natin kontrolado nila yung narrative. Pero sana maging may kaakibat na parang critical thinking pagdating sa mga naratibo na yun. Maraming salamat.
Okay, maraming salamat po. Once again, thank you to all our panelists for your discussion. So they have identified many pressing issues that we hope will be discussed in the upcoming SONA on July 24. So thank you very much also to our audience members for your questions. So this concludes our program today. Maraming salamat po muli at ingat po tayong lahat. Thank you. Coffee, snacks. Ay, okay, photo op daw.
Dito sa
Prof.